Good morning and welcome to the weekend. If you're wondering why I'm wearing this hat, it's because I bring you the Don of Vsett Scooter paint jobs. Hello and welcome to my channel EMG. You've just had a look at the scooter. Awesome. So now we're going to break into some details. I'm going to tell you the pros and cons. I'm going to break down how hard it was to do, which was pretty hard, I'd have to say. I wasn't expecting it to be that difficult. A lot of tight, small angles, easier to paint bigger panels. But here I'm going to quickly break down and I'm going to run through some of the pros and cons, and then we'll break into a segment where I disassemble the rear suspension so you can see this week. I don't want to make the videos too long because I lose a lot of people when that happens. So we'll do it a little bit at a time. I hope to be putting out a lot of the content over the coming week on all the little different areas. It's a lot of editing. We'll get through it, but at the moment, for today's episode, I think we just need to bask in the glory of what is the Gulf livery Vsett 10. She is epic. I am so stoked with the way it's turned out. When you look at that, you can see the livery has turned out really good. I haven't screwed down the deck as yet. I've got the battery to reinstall. I want to seal up, which I want to make a specific episode just for sealing up because I see that come up a lot on different groups and chats. So I'm going to run through my take on what needs to be sealed up underneath there. I mean, it's fairly good. There's just a few areas where I think it's a bit weak to get you through this winter. In other areas, I've done video interval taking down of the parts, etc. I want to run through some of the bits, like this carbon revo rear deck here. That actually has turned out magnificently. I love the look of that. I mean, all praise to Carbon Revo here, because this, what a lovely bit of kit. It is really gorgeous. And painting it turned out to be quite easy because it was a flatter surface on that. So that turned out to be quite easy. Difficult areas where I've come across difficulties is I could not separate this part, which is like the upper wishbone to this, off of the stem. Now, I have watched videos and things like that on how other people have done it, followed them to the T, but it wouldn't come down. So unfortunately I didn't get to paint this bit, which is kind of like my goal there. Maybe in a future episode it will come off when I've maybe had a chance to wear it in, possibly, don't know. This was quite tricky to get off, this handle malarkey here, but I have succeeded there, as you can see, because it's a lovely orange, matching the orange of everywhere else. And other bits were a bit tight, you know, but I only had one breakage, and that breakage was a bolt inside here. So I'm just going to quickly whip these up. I broke one bolt in that hole there. It's my own fault really. I didn't realise there was a nut on the back side, and that was the first one I tried to twist off. But if I don't do it, well, should I say really, if I do it, that saves you from not doing it. So I've got a new bolt. I managed to get the old one threaded out from underneath, but yep, so I've got to go, as you can see in here, I've got to reseal this. I've got to reseal the holes where all the cables come through. One thing I will touch on, there's a bit of rust in here. Now obviously aluminium doesn't rust, so the little wire thing that went round it all had corroded. It's sealed in kind of with like some sort of mastic, but obviously if water's getting down here and causing, so for that to rust like that, I've got rid of that springy bit. I suggest that you probably will do too. It's kind of like this, what you see down here, but it has been sort of sealed up in mastic, so that had to go. I'm going to seal this up properly. So yeah, this has come out really, really good. So here we go. Anyway, the pros and cons. Right, immediately, one of the big pros is, see those stripes down here? Make you go 1 mile an hour faster, or 100 kilometres faster. For all you guys out there in kilometre land. But yeah, about 1 mile an hour faster for that, about 1 mile an hour faster for this, about 1 mile an hour faster for the rear spoiler. So that's a definite pro. I mean, it just looks absolutely sick, the colour scheme on this. I've already touched on the carbon revo parts. I think they've really turned out really, really well. Love that. I did flip it over, so this technically would be the underside. So of underneath there you can still see the carbon revo badge. Obviously you had to paint up the frame. The work on that, you know, the quality of the work on that, really good. Really impressed with that. And then I've put the carbon revo carbon fibre bits onto the deck. I've done a whole thing on the deck. Again, I'll say it was really tricky to do in some spots, especially this rear area here. There were so many curves underneath, it was causing no end of problems. I'm going to be putting some helicopter tape down on the edges because I don't want to scratch it now I've done it. So I've got to order some more helicopter tape, like I put on the top of the deck, because that's helicopter tape, so where you stand on it you don't scratch paint or the lacquer. Lacquering, that takes a real long time to do. It took surprisingly longer. I was ending up baking bits in my oven in the house. These pinstripes, they were pretty awkward to do, especially around with some of the curves, and the oven does shrink them a little bit as well, so that made life a little bit tricky. I think my biggest concern, I think when you do something like this, is the amount of attention it's going to attract. Obviously good attention from people you want to see it, but obviously bad attention from like a local law or thieves. They want to see it as much as everybody else does, and they can't wait to pull you over or nick it. I mean, they're not standard looking scooters in the first place. They look pretty big, you know, they're pretty powerful. People can see that they're not the standard sort of scooter. So when you draw attention to it like this, you really are waving a flag in people's faces. So anyway, I'm going to go crack on and show you how I took the rear suspension apart in this episode, and we'll move on with other episodes going forward. Okay, thank you. So here I am, I'm undoing the mudguard. The first thing to get off of the rear of the scooter is the rear mudguard. This enables you to pull the two arms apart once it's out of the way. It's one of the things that's keeping the two arms apart with the rear wheel and with the suspension bolt and the swing arm bolt. So we'll quickly get this out of the way with a 4mm or 3mm Allen key. On here you can see the 4 bolts will be undone, and then we can get this out of the way completely. There we go, that's that out of the way. Now underneath you want to disconnect the cable or pull the cable away from the swing arm. As these little tabs, you need to get a screwdriver in there and lift the wire away once you've freed off the tab, rotated the top tabs, and that's the wire out of the way there. Remove the rear caliper. You can see I've just left it laying down here, and then we put a 21mm socket on the rear wheel nut, gently teasing that around, and you will find that it comes all the way undone. Quite easy. You might need a bit of force at first. Once you've got this side undone, you need to pull the little key out which holds it, stops it from falling out, and then you repeat the process on the other side. Here you can see I'm stabilising the scooter, giving it a few gentle taps, and it loosens it off, and then you're able just to rotate that all the way out. Once again, once we've got that out, remove this little tab. That'll be the wheel 3. There's one last little clip here that was holding the cable in I hadn't spotted originally, so I just popped that out of there. And now the whole wheel assembly is the motor, disc and tyre all comes off, and you can lay that on your deck. With the weight gone from the rear, you'll notice the scooter start to rock about. It might be advisable to strap it down if you're doing this yourself. Then we move on to the top of the rear suspension. This is with a 4mm Allen key. Quickly loosen that off, and you'll find that one end will come out, in this case nearest the ratchet. Spinning it out of the way, and then you can tap the other side all the way through, leaving the instrument that you tapped it in with holding the suspension up, where you can bolt together or slip the parts together that you've just knocked out. It's always a good idea to put them all back together. Then you'll notice there's these 2 copper sleeves that sit inside there. They're to reduce the wear. Then you drop that down, taking note that you get one washer on one side but not on the other. It's just a spacer, and then you can drop the suspension down like that. Now your swing arms are swinging free. You need to pull the rubber caps off the swing arm bolts. They can be a bit tricky, they're very tight, and then with a 19mm socket you can undo the bolt at the rear here. Again, it's a bit tight, you've got to give it a bit of force, but once it's free it should start coming all the way undone. And what I've done then was, once I got this nut out of the way here, which obviously became tighter and tighter, you got your swing arm, you now need to pull them apart. Unfortunately I didn't video that bit, but I had to tap it with a soft face mallet. Next up, once you've got your arms apart, you need to release or take off the rear caliper mount. Now these are actually got a nut on the back side with an 8mm socket. I undone all 3 of these, and then I put the parts in the wash. Just a bit of soapy water just to clean off any contaminants, grease, and then give them a good rinse. Well, I hope you liked the video. Subscribe and like for more, and I'll see you in the next episode. Ta-da!